everyday thing when you let your nuts hang.
I am the most hated person in my husband's family, and this is why. So for those of you guys that have followed our journey here on TikTok, you guys know that back in 2021, we took in 3 kids, and the girls have shared their story here. You guys can go listen to their side of the story first and then come back to this video. But I'm just going to tell you guys the side of my story and how I came to be in their life. So I met my husband in 2017, and this was also the year that I met the girls. I remember that we used to go to barbecues and stuff to my mother-in-law's house. And when we were there and the kids would walk in, automatically the family would just start judging them about the way that they looked and about the way that they dressed and smelled and their hair, everything. And I just found it a little bit odd, the fact that they would be judging children. So fast forward to 2019. So prior to my husband and I getting married, we did end up getting this house. We had 2 empty rooms in it, and obviously my mother-in-law knew this. So then one day when I was here, like just getting the house ready for me to move in, she came and talked to me about how her daughter, which is the girl's mom, needed to move out of her place. She never told me that she was getting kicked out of this place. She never told me anything other than the fact that her daughter was struggling, and at this time she had gave birth to a little boy. And imagine, like, when I heard this, I felt so bad for her because I mean, a single mom with three little girls and 1 baby, it just seemed like a lot. She told me that they had already applied for a place, so that they just needed about a month or so in order for her to be able to get her place. So I was like, perfect, they could stay here for that month. So then my husband and I ended up getting married, and I ended up moving into this house. And when I moved in, I realized that the kids were not being well taken care of. I was always having to come and pretty much take care of the kids, which I didn't mind taking care of the kids. I just felt like it was strange to me, the fact that she was just leaving her kids all the time. So I just kind of stepped up in the meantime that they lived here. Things progressively got worse. And imagine, we had just gotten married at this time. It was just really hard to deal with, financially struggling. So we asked her if she could please pay the rent for that month. Mind you, it had been months since she hadn't been paying. Sometimes she would pay like $100, $200, but a lot of times there was no money, and we would still be feeding her children, taking her children out. It was being unappreciated by her, at the point that there was one day where my husband texted her and asked her if she could please pay the rent, and she just cussed at him on the phone and told him that getting married to me was the worst decision he ever made. We told her that she needed to leave because everything was just becoming really bad. The children could stay here because I knew that they would be in better hands with us. During this time, I had also called my mother-in-law, and I told her if she could please talk to her daughter, and she just pretty much would tell me just kind of like to suck it up because her daughter was struggling. And I mean, if it was my mom would have literally talked to me and been like, you're being very ungrateful. Sorry guys, I'm talking a little bit fast because the girls already talked about this, so I'm just kind of summing it up and running through everything. This time I had to purchase cameras because I didn't feel safe in my own household. There was men coming in my house. I smell urine inside my house, and I then came to find out that the men, instead of going to the bathroom, because if they went to the bathroom, then I would see that somebody was in my house. An empty water bottle, they would pee, and then they would leave the pee there. And I'm guessing that this time the water bottle was not closed, and the urine ended up everywhere. So by the time that they ended up moving out, I had to switch the carpets in the house. I had to switch out the couches, everything, because everything was a complete mess. Sorry, that's my dogs. So I ended up telling her, hey, you know, like, why don't you leave the kids here and like you get it together, you get your life together, and then you could come back for your kids. Obviously she refused to. So they ended up leaving at the end of 2019, and then I believe like about a month later I found out that they were moving to North Carolina. All of us literally thought this was a super crazy idea because a lot of times she relied on my mother-in-law taking care of the kids, or she would just leave the kids here at my house. Thought it was a really crazy idea, moving the kids all the way to North Carolina or South Carolina. I don't even know where, but they just moved to Carolina somewhere. We told her like, hey, why don't you leave the kids and stuff like that. My mother-in-law told her to leave the kids. Everybody told her to leave the kids, and she did not leave the kids. At this time, I lost all contact with the girls because their mom had told them that I was kicking them out because of them and this was all their fault. Until one day I received a call from one of the girls telling me that their mom hasn't came home and that they're starving. I couldn't believe it. So then I go over to my mother-in-law's house. She was very worried about her daughter, and I was really worried about the kids because the kids were starving. This is where we made the plan with my mother-in-law. and only my mother-in-law. We made the plan that she was going to go get the kids, and then she was going to bring them back, and Renee and I offered to take in 2 kids because at this time she had one of her own, and imagine getting 4 more. It was just a lot for her, so the children would not get the love, care, attention that they all needed. So we ended up offering to take in 2. My mother-in-law agreed to this. My mother-in-law and her husband ended up leaving the next morning, I believe so. In the meantime, they traveled back with the kids. Renee and I were getting the girls a room situated in the house. At this time, I only had 1 room available. That's also another reason why I was only able to care for 2 kids. Because I knew that we can financially support 2, meaning getting them the best education, college, shoes, clothes, everything that they might need. I just couldn't afford to do that for all 4, but I knew that I could do it for 2 and support my mother-in-law in raising the other 2 at her household. At this time, I was 22 years old when this was happening, and then my parents ended up giving us bunk beds. So we had beds ready, we had clothes, we had everything ready for 2 kids to come and live with us. So then a week goes by and nothing, and then a whole month goes by, and at this time I'm like, let's talk to your mom because what's going on. And at this time she tells me that her husband didn't want the kids to be separated. Thought that the best thing for the kids was for them to all stay together in her house. I was like, oh, you're right. Like, taking them away from each other is not the right thing to do right now because emotionally they are so attached. They went from not being able to come to my house to not being able to contact me to when I would go over. The girls, when you look at a child and they have so much joy in them and they just seem very happy and just so much light to a kid, The more I would go over to see the kids, it just seemed their light was just little by little going away. There was times that the girls would ask me, can we go to the room? Can we talk to you in the room? So I would go to the room because I felt like I wanted to hear how they were doing, and not insinuating that they were bad in my mother-in-law's house because I fully trusted that they were in the best hands. So the girls would close the door, and as soon as they would close the door, you would just see my mother-in-law open the door and stand at the door and say, what are you guys talking about? We didn't have a chance to talk about anything. I started feeling uncomfortable because I felt like my mother-in-law was thinking wrong of me. There was one time where I had asked my mother-in-law if I could take all the kids to the snow. Her husband said no. He told me that I was not allowed to take them anywhere. And then that same weekend, my brother-in-law ends up taking them to the snow. They didn't let us take them to the snow, but he ended up taking them to the snow. I started getting very mad about this. And then one time my parents invited us to a barbecue at their house. And I ended up going over to my mother-in-law's house and I told her, I want to take the kids with me. It was very like passive aggressive, kind of like let them go because I'm going to take them type of thing. My parents don't live close to us, so maybe like an hour of us being there, I started getting calls from my mother-in-law's husband. I just looked at my phone and I was like, oh, he's gonna tell me to bring the kids, so I'm just gonna ignore him. The kids were having a blast. My mom noticed that my phone kept ringing. And parents, my mom was like, no, take the kids back because then the kids could get in trouble. So then I picked up his call and he told me that the kids were in trouble and that they knew that they were not allowed to go out. I tell him that, oh, I'm sorry, I know, but like my parents invited them and I really wanted them to come. I'll take them back as soon as we're done here, And he said, you need to bring the kids right now. So I ended up taking the kids home. I remember I had written my number in little papers where they could roll them up and they could put them inside their shoes or inside anywhere. I wrote my number and I even would tell the girls, memorize my number. I don't know why I had such a bad feeling. So from there, I think I was just bothered with him and he just seemed very I think he felt like I disrespected him. So he no longer had this nice character to him with me. After this, I continued to go and literally each time I would go, I would feel so uncomfortable. I was in the kitchen and one of the girls said, I'm going to go take a shower. My mother-in-law yelled, don't lock the door. And I asked her, why isn't she allowed to lock the door when she's showering? So then she mentions his name and says, my husband doesn't like them locking the door. If something was to happen to them, if they fall in the bathroom, it is easier for us to walk in there than have to break through a door. I don't know if I was naive. I just was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. To be honest with you, never in a million years did I think anything was going on other than them being really strict on the kids. So mind you, he would not let them come over anymore. I was
Damn, what y'all think the daddy is touching the girls and the mom is enabling it? It's a I don't think that was the original plan, but if that's happening over time, I believe the grandpa is a pervert. But I'm still trying to figure out if it was her daughter and her husband's sister, or it's not his husband's her husband's key baby mama. That gotta be his sister, right? So his sister is doing all this, the one who left the kids.
I wasn't allowed to see them. I was not allowed to communicate with them. They were not, like, if I would call and would ask about the girls, they would never pass me the phone to the girls. I think I went a few months without seeing the girls. Then I heard that the girl's mom was coming back from North Carolina. They had came back August of 2020, and now it was August of 2021. Somehow one of the girls got a hold of a phone in school, and she contacted me and told me that her mom was coming back and that they were so scared because they were going to be put back with her. So once again, I reach out to my mother-in-law and I tell her it is unfair for them to be forcing the children to go back with the mom instead of the kids being able to live with us. And even the mom was okay with the children living with us. So then at this time, my husband goes up to him and has a conversation with him and tells him, since you said that we couldn't take one of the kids, two of the kids, because they would be separated, we're willing to take all four, because the kids just seemed like they were not happy. He literally laughed in his face and told him, you really think that you would be able to take care of these kids? These kids are a lot. No, I'm not going to allow you to take them. Just to clarify something, I married into this family. I married my husband, and these people are my husband's mom and stepdad and my husband's sister. On October 16th of 2021, I texted my sister-in-law and I told her to bring the kids because I really wanted to see them. She ended up bringing the girls over, and that's when I realized that the youngest one her face just seemed destroyed. Like there was no joy in her, there was no happiness. And if you would know this little girl, she was so full of all of that, but not anymore. It looked like she was crying. She didn't want to talk to me. She didn't want to talk to anybody. So then I asked the sisters what had happened, that I heard them say that she was being punished by being starved. That was so triggering to me, because the last time that I had received a call from one of them was that they were starving in North Carolina. So for me to hear that the punishment was not feeding her, I thought that that was the most messed up crap in the nicest terms. I was furious. I was so angry. So I ended up calling my sister-in-law, and she was just like, I don't know what to do. That's when I told her that she should leave the kids here, and if she didn't leave the kids here, I would call CPS the next day, because what they were doing was very messed up. I literally had the girls that night, and we laughed and we talked and we ate, and we had the time of our lives that night. I came to sleep that night and I told Rene, my husband, that I finally felt at peace because they were under my roof, and that I was gonna do everything possible to make sure that those kids were okay. So fast forward to, I believe, so they came in October, and on November, I had been calling around to get them therapy, and finally one of them had gotten therapy. In the therapy sessions, they told me that before things get better, they could get worse. So one of the girls was experiencing a lot of anxiety. Things started getting worse, and the anxieties just seemed very, very, very bad. I told her, hey, is everything okay? Do you want to talk? I remember this night I told her, no matter what you're going through, I am going to be here for you, and we're going to get through this together. And as soon as I said that, her head goes down and tears just come down her face, and I could see them because she's like dripping onto the ground. She told me that she was really scared of this person. I didn't understand why she was scared of him. And then out of her mouth, words that I will never forget. She mentions his name and says, he touched me. Then she starts telling me details, and I kid you not, I feel like all of a sudden I stopped. Everything just in my head just started echoing. It just felt like it was just echoing, and the words that she was telling me, that she touched me, like he was sexually abusing me, was just going through my head. And I just sat there and I just cried and cried. And at that moment, I literally felt like grabbing my car and going to their house and yelling at them. But I didn't know what to do. And all of a sudden, I felt fear. At that moment, I just held her. I remember that night I talked to God. I know this sounds very selfish, but why me? Why is it that you are sending me to do this? My husband was peacefully sleeping right next to me, but this was put on me. It was not put on anybody else but me. This whole situation was very triggering to me because I experienced this growing up. I experienced sexual abuse by a family member. So when she told me this, I just felt like I was put back to being a little girl with the fear of nobody believing me. Sorry. So then the next day, my husband wakes up really early, and he left for work, so I didn't have a chance to talk to him or anything. So this whole day I'm carrying this whole weight by myself, and I didn't talk to nobody about it. That afternoon I picked up the youngest one out of the siblings. The sister finally ends up telling Betsy that she was being sexually abused by this man. And then all of a sudden, Betsy starts hysterically yelling and crying at the same time. And she says that this had happened to her too. And that she thought that she was the only one that was experiencing this. So I looked at her and I was like, what? She said, yeah, he has been touching me all this time. The other day we went to the doctor's appointment and ended up telling a social worker there, because I told myself, I don't want to go and talk to my husband about this, and maybe because this is his mom's husband and the mom would be dragged into this, I didn't want my husband to stop me from what I had to do. And I even told myself, if my husband later does not agree with this, I cannot be with this man. Be covering up abuse within your family just to keep the family together or keep peace between people in the family is not right. So we ended up reporting it that day to the social worker. That night, obviously I had to tell my husband, and I was not surprised that he was going to be supportive. The only thing that I was worried about was how this was going to affect him and the relationship that he had with his mom, because it was an amazing relationship. They had a really, really good relationship. So I told him, and his reply was, whoever gets dragged through this whole situation for being involved in sexual abuse of these children should pay, no matter who it is. We just kind of let the law take over, and we cut all contact with them whatsoever. We were instructed by the detective to keep this between just us. We didn't know how everybody was going to come down on us. Till this day, I think that was the best thing that we could have done, because nobody was on our side. Nobody believed us. Nobody wanted to support. Throughout the whole process, I've not gotten one single phone call from anybody from the family, or call them on their birthdays or Christmas and ask me if you can either see them or bring them a present, or the simple fact of them calling them and say, hey, I know today's your birthday, so happy birthday. Not one single phone call from any family members. And I can imagine how this can be so hurtful to these children. On December 1st, I received a phone call from a detective asking me if I can go into the interrogation place and take the girls so that they can go into details about the horrible things that had happened to them. He was literally crying. So you can imagine the horrible details that we had to say, or that we have had to give him, and how he was so upset about how all of this could have been avoided if the children would have just been left here. Ever since 2019, it was 2023, and we were here talking about all the horrible things that they went through. While this is happening, they asked me if I was willing to make the phone call. I forgot right now what it's called, but it's when you make the phone call to the person and you're in a recorded line and the detectives are there in the room, and you talk to them to see if they are willing to confess to the crime that they have done. They asked me if I was willing to do that, and I told them I was willing to do anything for the girls to be able to get justice. So I remember making the call to him, and when I made the call to him, he never denied doing the stuff that he did to the girls, and he never confessed to it. The detective straight up told me he's guilty because somebody that's not guilty is not going to sugarcoat everything. I got so frustrated on the phone with him that I straight up asked him the question. It's a yes or a no question. Did you or did you not sexually abuse the girls? What else other than yes or no can you give me at that point? But in all of that, he literally tells me, I'm so proud of you. And you might be like, what? Because that's how I was at that moment. What are you proud of? Why are you telling me that you're proud of me? He said, I am proud of you because I never thought that anybody would stick up for these children. What do you think that means? To me, that meant you did this thinking that you could get away with it because there was nobody that ever stuck up for these children. After the call, the detectives told me that they were going to look into more evidence, and if they had enough evidence that they would make an arrest. And I told them that if they can please not arrest him in his home. The reason why was they have a child, and I did not want to cause any more trauma than this was already going to cause. On December, 2 days before New Year's, he was arrested. They made the arrest at a stoplight, and I'm pretty sure he already saw it coming because I don't know what he expected me to do with the information that was given to me, or did he just expect me to just brush it off like everybody has ever brushed off every problem they had in this family. But I was not willing to do that. I don't remember if my husband called my mother-in-law or did she call him, but I remember we were together and she called and I told him put it on speaker, which I regret saying that. So in this call, she mentions how the girls were going to ruin our marriage just like they ruined hers, and that I needed to go to a psychiatric hospital because there was clearly something wrong with my brain. I had shared with her that I struggled with depression and stuff like that. Obviously at this time, we knew that everything was going to affect her because this man was the provider of her family. So Renee and I had made a plan of how we were going to financially support her. But obviously when this all happened, we were forced to cut all ties with her. I forgot to mention that prior to the day that we took in the kids on October 16th, prior to that, literally a week before the children came to live with us, Renee and I had been talking about the desire to foster. I don't know if you believe in God, but this was a week prior that we made this decision, and we ended up attending the orientation for foster care. And I don't know if this was a sign that I opened my heart and God saw that I was willing. Because all this time, I had wanted these children to have a safe home and to have a loving home. And it never happened. And God was guiding me and Renee and preparing us through this process, because eventually he knew that once we were ready, fully ready with our hearts open, he would bring in 3 children to us. And I just wanted to share with you guys. This process has challenged me mentally, emotionally, physically, in every way. I truly believe that God has been there for me. And I remember the first night that the girls came to live with us, and I was literally staring at the ceiling in my room and being like, oh my God, I don't know how to be a parent. But something inside of me told me, just take it day by day. So that's what I did. And then we ended up taking in the little one. All you guys' comments on here, and one of the comments was if this person went to jail. So obviously when somebody is taken into custody, you don't automatically just go to prison. All this time, through the whole story that I'm telling you, he has been awaiting trial. So he waited on trial for 2 years. Like the girls have mentioned, we recorded the process of trial because this is reality. And honestly, I have not seen stuff like this on this page because, one, it's really sad to go through this whole process. But we just wanted to give you guys the backstory of what we have experienced as a family. It's because Their story is so heartbreaking, but it's also very empowering to know that these girls went through all of this and now we are pushing to get justice. I also don't understand what I was supposed to do. This whole thing happened, family members of this person would contact me and tell me really rude stuff, that I stole somebody else's children. Sometimes when you do stuff like this, unfortunately, it breaks families apart. Something that I have not mentioned on this page, one, because it's very hard to talk about, but two, because this was all taken against me, was that one time, you know how mother-in-laws are always like, when you get married, automatically they already start asking, when are you gonna have kids? When are you gonna have your kids? And so my mother-in-law always kept asking us when we would have our own kids. So I opened up to her and I told her that I was struggling with infertility. I've known about this ever since I experienced my cancer journey, that I probably can't have my own kids, because this is very triggering. When she would ask these questions, I ended up telling her that I know that she wants me to have grandkids and her grandkids and stuff, but unfortunately I was struggling with infertility. So if she can please stop asking me these questions, because it was very like painful to know that I could possibly never give her a grandchild. This was something that I told her in private, because it was supposed to stay in private and because I thought that she would understand. So once this whole thing went down, I started getting phone calls saying that just because you can't have your own children, you're going to go and steal somebody else's kids. And mind you, I was getting phone calls and text messages from people here in the United States, as well as people outside the United States that were family to these people, you know? Or like messages telling me like, oh, it's unfair, why don't you let her see her kids? But yet none of these people knew that her kids were removed by the system. I didn't want it to be my place to be the one to tell them that, you know, but I found it very unfair, the fact that all these people were coming at me and making me feel bad. And we did what was right. And sometimes I do sit and think like, what did they want me to do about it? What did I do that was so wrong? I needed to tell the law what was really going on to these children, because if I didn't, who would? For people that have followed us since the beginning of this journey, you guys know that we have already gone through trial, and the first time the trial was hung, which means that the jury couldn't come up with a decision, and therefore we weren't able to get justice. So we either had to retry the case or just drop it, and of course I was not going to drop it. I wanted to listen to the girls and see what they wanted. After speaking to them and understanding what they wanted to do, we ended up deciding to go through trial all over again, which, if you know, this is very traumatizing and obviously not something that we just enjoy doing. You know, these children want to live a normal life. They want to just go to school, enjoy their time with their friends, and instead they're having to deal with all this trauma and all these things that have happened to them. Oh, something that we forgot to mention, sorry, I'm all over the place, but it's just little details here and there. When Betsy in her story mentions that she was abused prior to me knowing her, this had already happened to her one time. There was no trial because the family never pushed for there to be one, but the lawyer that represented her back then happens to be the lawyer that's representing her through this case. So then when I met her, we both cried because there was no way that this was happening to them again. I'll pin the videos on our page from our past trial, and then a lot of you guys are wondering, did we get justice? And so I will be posting those videos as soon as I'm done editing them. Anyways, as you guys know, eventually we ended up adopting the girls. If you guys have followed the story, you guys know that I wanted this since the beginning for them. I wanted them to be free. And so that was a really nice day, and they ended up both changing their names. It is very beautiful to see their little cards with their new names, and they were very deserving of a family that's going to fight for them and is going to love them. Ugh, I'm such a crybaby, guys. My parents, sometimes I hear them talk about the kids and they're like, oh, these are my granddaughters and this is my grandson and stuff like that. They are very loved by my parents. So right now we're just working towards being able to maybe get a bigger house to where our little one no longer has to sleep in the closet, and be able to live in an area where we don't have to bump into people that are going to mug the girls or make them feel bad about stuff that has happened to them. Yeah, so that's my biggest wish right now, to be able to find a home where we finally get to breathe and be able to live, and hopefully one day be able to foster more kids. So thank you guys so much for supporting our journey and for being here. We have told you guys this whole story so that somebody out there listening can either realize that, let me look more into my child's life and let me be more present in my child's life. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching and being so supportive, and for all the kind messages. We see them all. Sometimes we can't reply to all, but we do see all of you guys' messages.
What to do, everyday people, man? It's your boy PJ. Today we back with another lit video. Back in the confessional, and yes, we staying lit, big dog, man. Shout out to my everyday people, man. We lit on live. We lit live on Twitch and Facebook. Make sure you follow me on Twitch and Facebook, Everyday PJ. Now, oh my gosh. Now, I think the kicker of this whole story was that the audacity of the stepfather saying, thinking that he could have got away with it because no one cared for those kids. Man, I wanted to punch that dude in the gut, boy. I was just thinking, like, when she first heard the first girl tell her that she was abused, like, in my mind, as I'm hearing that, I just pictured her, because she said it was echoing through her brain. I just pictured her getting up, going and grabbing the strap and saying, we about to go confront this MFer. I mean, because what else is there to do? Man, I remember somebody in my family decided that they was going to be hot in the twat. And when that person's friends said, hey, so-and-so left with this dude, he in college, he goes to this school right here, da 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 da, and this is where he live, and this is where they going. My daddy said, get the strap. Well, he didn't say get the strap, but we actually did. But he pulled out his briefcase, and I think I told this story before. That man had I ain't never seen this gun. I'm like, damn, daddy, I didn't been through all your damn drawers. I ain't never seen this gun. But he had this big ass, long ass pistol, like coat, big what's his dirty hairy shit. And yeah, it was about to go down. So that's all I could think about when something like that happens. I remember it was some other stuff that was going down. Like, I remember somebody in the neighborhood, a girl got touched by a dude in the neighborhood, and like, you know, we down from our neighborhood, so the dude that touched the girl is in the hood. So it was an APB on that mug, and word on the street was, get him before the streets get him. And we was out looking, and you could see the police. Like, as we out looking, you see the police looking. We riding by police, we looking in the same. We know the police know, and eventually, like, the police found him first. But he ought to be glad, because that day everybody was out. And so, like I said, that stuff is not tolerated. Man, I got most stories of nasty motherfuckers that I just don't fuck with. You know what I mean? And the reason is because I don't know what type of mag it was. I never seen it. That was my first time ever seeing that gun from him. Um, but my dad always had a revolver. Like ever since I was a kid, I remember my dad having a revolver. I used to, man, I was stupid back in the day. I used to go shoot his revolver, then go put I'll replace his bullets back in there. And he didn't know, like, damn, where's my bullets going? And I go put them back in the in the same spot. And he like, not thinking like, is this nigga shooting my gun? Like, but anyway, that's another person. I know an old man. Man, I ain't gonna tell too much of the story. Old man got a young girl pregnant. I ain't gonna tell you how or what, but she was underage. He ended up doing the rest of his life in prison, and and that person is close to me, and I just be like, hey, I don't fuck with it. I don't fuck with it. I ain't rocking with it at all. So, you know what I'm saying? You no commissary, no nothing. You know what I'm saying? Don't even ask. Cause what you mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, we not even doing that, bro. Not even doing that, bro. So it's just like, man, you gotta call them people out, man. When I was in prison, the prison yard that I was on was full of them. And I remember sitting next to this dude and he telling me his story. He like, man, this and this and this, this and this and this. Then another dude, he telling me his story, man, this and this and this, this and this. Turned out, man, she was 16. Big dog, man, Nigga, you don't know what a 16-year-old look like, fool? Boy, if you don't get your stupid ass. But, man, you can't tell these niggas nothing. I don't want nothing young. Nope. Man, I don't even want my whiskey under the age of 21. That shit need to be aged 40 years looking ass. Give me some 40-year-old whiskey. Fuck out of here with this thing shit. But yeah, man, these dudes are sick, bro. And to think about it like this. Think about it like this. Dude gets convicted. I don't know if dude gets convicted. I don't remember. She said that they had a hung jury the first time. Let's say dude gets convicted, right? He gets convicted. Guess what? They're gonna send him to a yard full of pedophiles and a yard full of people who's about to go home. Nobody's touching him. I'm about to go home. I just did 25 years. I ain't seen no family. I came in at 20. I'm 45 right now. I'm going home. I don't give a damn about no prison politics. That's what these niggas do. You understand what I'm saying? They protect these people who touch kids. They get the whole facility. Now, why was I at this facility? I think I was only at that facility because I only had a 2-year sentence. That's the only reason why. I wasn't even supposed to be there that long. So they was like, and then you gotta watch. You gotta think about it. It was a lot of people from out of town. And you be like, why is everybody from out of town? Because they trying to go home. They not trying to stay in. They not trying to hurt nobody and get more time and stay in Oklahoma prisons. So they're being protected and they're being housed with inmates who are less likely to commit a crime to get more time that would hurt one of these pedophiles. Now, they also look at your family history, your family jacket. Is this person related to anybody who is a pedophile or who's been sexually abused? They look at that type of stuff. They understand. I don't know how they get this information, but they get it. And they also know if because also if somebody's been molested in your family, they'll link that your name to that person to see if there's a correlation. And the reason why they do that is because there's been times that they've let a brother of somebody in the prison yard with the offender of the woman or whoever it was, and it turned out bad for them. So eventually the Oklahoma Department of Corrections got sued twice. They got sued by the offender's family and they got sued by the dude who killed him, because they put him in. They shouldn't have put him there. So so now, but guess what? He's doing life in prison now because he unalived somebody who basically took something that can't be replaced. Not a life. We're not talking about it. He didn't take a life. He took, the woman. And I think that's worse than taking a woman's life, because if you take somebody's life, they're done. If you molest them, you sexually abuse them, you take much more than that, because the reason you take much more than that is because they have to live with that day to day, repeating over and over in their brain. And so that's why it hurts.